on this Thursday, on January 30th of this year, 11-year veteran of the Evansville Police Department, Philip Smith, became the River City's new chief of police.
And he's joining us this morning to discuss a variety of topics, including his focus of the first 3 months in that leadership role. Good morning. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning.
We're excited to talk with you. I kind of want to just starting by asking, how has it been the last 3 months?
It's been very interesting. It's been a roller coaster ride. I was telling Tommy off camera, it's almost like, you know, I was in a two-seater car and I was the passenger and I saw everything in the windshield. But now I'm behind the wheel, and
yes.
you never know how the car handles until you're driving it. So.
And I meant to ask you, too, you know, your predecessor, Billy Bolin, he is now over in Henderson. You've probably learned quite a bit. I mean, what are some of the big things that you were kind of learning along the way that you kind of took away from him during that time?
Well, first of all, it's about relationships and people, and Billy was great at that and prioritizing the person over the job. I kind of follow in that same ilk, and I think it's great that he is the chief of Henderson because that kind of connects the two agencies across the bridge, and so I think it'll be great that he's there.
Absolutely.
And over the last maybe 3 months here in Evansville, we've seen a lot of change in leadership roles, not only a new mayor and, of course, appointing these positions, the fire department, down the line to the parks department, to the Evansville Police Department. What have you seen change in that 3 months? What focus has shifted maybe, you know, prior to the beginning of 2024?
I think we've been very intentional about collaboration amongst the new department heads. You know, we have a new parks unit that's constantly working not only with us but with the parks department. Me and Tony are always doing things together as the fire chief and police chief. So the collaboration is great. We're not doing this alone. It's like a whole team atmosphere, and I think the city will really benefit from that.
And a lot's changed over the last, well, more than a decade that you've been with this department, because I think when you hit the ground running, I know you're from Clarksville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
You came up here, you're a transplant. We loved having you here. And you've made a home here and a family. But when you first started at the department, things were a little different. The focus, the criminal focus of that department seemed to be around the emerging opioid crisis. But now we've seen that change and morph into a fentanyl issue, even deadlier than before. So explain your strategy moving forward, because, again, a lot of flavors have changed since, you know, the beginning of your career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I believe meth was the big thing. The one-pot meth labs were huge when I first started. And the first step that I took to combat that was appoint my assistant chief, Nathan Hassler, who was the sergeant over the Joint Task Force unit, who was a clandestine expert as far as meth labs and narcotics. He understands that fentanyl and heroin are the two leading killers in our community. So appointing him as our assistant chief and kind of guiding me, you know, on the best practices is the first step that I took. And we have a narcotics unit that is out there absolutely tearing it up as far as getting dope off the streets.
And when you took over this role, what are some of the main focuses you kind of want to go on? I mean, we see the city parks. You guys are focusing on that. But what are some of the other things that residents watching can maybe say, I know EPD is trying to focus on this in the months ahead?
Absolutely. We're going to continue a focus on our group violence intervention. We've seen great fruits from our labor there. Internally, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on the recruitment and retention piece. We've added a sergeant to our recruitment, our personnel unit. On the retention piece, we're being very intentional on making sure that our people feel valued and feel listened to. So, you know, that's my main focus right there, is keeping people in the door and trying to attract people to come to the door.
And not only has your strategy in fighting crime changed over the last decade, also the tools you use, the technology available to you. Tell us about flock cameras.
Absolutely.
And I understand, you know, it's, you know, a secretive location here and there in town, but what has the impact been so far in linking people to some of these crimes they've committed using that technology?
Well, and it's not only crime. I mean, we've been able to locate individuals that may have been missing with the flock cameras. Maybe they've suffered from a mental, or nervous breakdown, and that they've gone rogue, and they've done it in a vehicle, and we've been able to locate them according to that. We have been able to use that as lead information in solving crimes or finding suspects. So it's one of the greatest inventions I know during my law enforcement lifetime. But that technology is, you know, always evolving in law enforcement, and you see other agencies starting to push towards connecting the ecosystem of technology towards a real-time crime center, which is something I'm focused on heading for the Evansville Police Department.
And you have a lot of community events. I mean, you guys are at, I know you were at the Holly's House movie night. You guys do Coffee with a Cop. So many things. You do the neighborhood walks as well. What has been the impact of getting to meet these people right here in our neighborhood, especially for you taking over this new role?
Well, absolutely. I think you get a lot more buy-in and you get a lot more honesty from people when you have relationships with them. I was actually just at a school with other chiefs from around the state, and I heard the South Bend chief say that he no longer calls it community policing, he calls it relationship policing, and I really like that because it's all about relationships. And there'll be times where I don't get to be, you know, the Walking Wednesday chief, and then I'll have to actually address some serious issues. And, you know, if you don't have that relationship already established, it's a lot harder to get your message across.
You're just a few years removed from high school, technically. We know we have,
let's call it that.
Prom season coming up in the next couple of weeks and over the next month. We've had a lot of deadly crashes. They've involved high speed. They've involved dangerous driving. They've involved drunk driving, impaired driving. Yeah. The message you have for these youngsters out there as they go to celebrate, and mom and dad give them the keys to the car next month.
Yeah, absolutely. Look before you leap. Be thoughtful in your emotions while you're driving. Put those handheld devices down. We're seeing where distracted drivers are getting into even fender benders. So just pay attention and be a defensive driver. And that, not just the kiddos, the adults like myself as well, the older people as well. Be focused out there because we're in basically rockets with gasoline in them, right? And they can be flammable and they can be dangerous, and we want you all to be safe.
And before we wrap up, I want to ask you about this podcast that you guys have recently started. Talk to us about that. Where can people listen, and what is the point of starting this podcast?
Well, I know it's on Spotify. I know it's on our YouTube channel, and it's furthering the reach of our relationship building process. And Taylor Maris does a great job of coming up with these creative things to do. This was all her idea. What's Your 20? Even the name of it. So I'm super proud of it and super proud of her. And just looking forward to people listening and learning more about the individual officers as well as our department.
I'm glad that you've been able to step up into this role. Hopefully the community will still see you with that gleeful smile in a lot of community events as you've been in the past. This is Chief of Police Philip Smith
no problem.
from the Evansville Police Department joining us, and we'll see you again next month perhaps. Griffin Glasscock tracking that forecast.
Yeah, and we've got some great conditions.